My name's Faith Archer, and I'm a freelance personal finance journalist. And that means I write about money.
Amazing. So let's go right back to the beginning. What was your educational journey?
Ah, I think I've had quite a twisted path. So my A levels were actually maths, further maths, physics, and economics. I had a year out in France, and so I was an au pair and I did French lessons. And then university, I actually started off doing law. I was absolutely convinced that I wanted to be a solicitor. Got disillusioned with both the degree and the job. Did quite a lot of work experience. Luckily, my university, you could switch subjects. So I actually did part one law and then part two history of art.
So the original plan was to be a lawyer. So how did you end up where you are now?
Again, slightly circuitous and by accident. I did the milk round. So when I was at university, I interviewed for a milk round job. I didn't actually have the option of going living at home looking for a job. So I interviewed to be a management consultant. So I
Oh, okay. Sorry. Like you said milk round. I envisioned like dropping milk off at people's houses.
Okay. The milk round was when lots of different companies used to show up at the university, do presentations, and there was this whole process about you could apply and be interviewed while you were still in your final year. So loads of, solicitors and accountants and consultants and bankers, and there was this process that you could apply by certain dates if you're at university and go through this. So what it meant was, even before my finals, I knew that I had a job offer to start in September. So I did strategy consulting for, it was nearly 6 years, but I was looking for ways to get out of it. Applied for a few jobs that didn't come off and finally decided, right, you know what? I don't want to be on a plane anymore. I want to rediscover daylight. So I just quit. And I was doing freelance work in sales and marketing consulting for internet startups just as the dot com bubble burst. And by this time, I had a mortgage. And so while I was applying for proper jobs, a friend of mine had a temp agency. It was like, Tim, please, work. I just need work. I can type. I can answer the phone, please. And one of the jobs he put me in for was at the Daily Telegraph,
Oh, wow.
and it was covering the researcher role. So I was quite literally making the tea, organising the editor's diary, fielding calls from the readers, dealing with reader letters, doing filing, that kind of thing. And they asked me back a couple of times. The same person went on holiday, and then somebody moved across to a different part of the paper. Everybody moved up one like musical chairs. There was a vacancy at the bottom, and they asked if I wanted to apply. Now, I would never have applied for that job
Yeah.
if I'd seen it advertised. I don't think they would have considered me if I hadn't been there and doing it, basically. So, yes, so that was how I ended up at the Telegraph. And again, certain amount of luck. It so happened that various people left the company, moved to different parts of the paper, and so I kept moving up, and I ended up as deputy personal finance editor.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So because you're freelance, does that give you more freedom to do a variety of different things as opposed to just writing a column for a newspaper, for example?
I think I've My job has definitely involved more variety since going freelance. Partly, there's a certain element of picking and choosing. To a certain extent, if people offer you work, you take it when you're freelance because you're not getting that regular salary that shows up every month. It depends on how much work you do. So I'm still doing some of the kinds of work that I did at the Telegraph. I'm still writing features on money topics, but I don't just write for newspapers anymore. I do a lot of work for magazines, women's magazines now. They take a lot more money content than they ever used to. And as one of the issues with journalism, the pay is not great. You may be aware of some of the like big name columnists. They might be getting a ton of money. Most people in journalism are not. I suppose it's much like music industry or other arts, being an actor or something. So to make the books balance, I also do corporate work because let's face it, lots of people need content. So I will do work for example, some of the comparison websites, financial comparison websites. They want content for their customers, so I write articles for them. I've also got a contract with a pension company, Pension Bee, and so I do content for them. And when I say content, it's not just writing anymore. Since going freelance now, I will do blog posts. I will script content for social media. I do, appearances on the radio. Very rarely pop up on telly. I've hosted live events. I've taken part in webinars. So there's just lots of different things that are not solely writing for a newspaper anymore.
And do you think that's fairly across the board?
I think a lot of the people I know who started off at newspapers like the Telegraph, they will nowadays do a balance between freelance and corporate work. But I think it depends on the individual how much you embrace, for example, some of the social channels. So one of the things I did when I was trying to get work was start up a blog, and that opened a lot of opportunities for me, and that made me much more focused on the social media side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are you literally writing skits? Are you providing sort of content that would be in a column but just repurposed for like an Instagram carousel? Like, what kind of work are we talking about?
It again, it varies. But for example, one of the things I'm due to do today, I've written a blog post for the pension company all about lifestyling. Pension lifestyling is a way of investing. And so the blog post that went to them because pensions are regulated products. They're a listed company. It has to go through their compliance department. So the content comes back. It may have been tweaked a bit. So compliance is happy. And then I use that to make a social media script, and that will go back through compliance, and then I will film it and send them the content because that's going to go out on their TikTok channel. If it's my content, then it can be much more ad hoc, and it might be just a photograph, or it might be a story, or the kind of thing you could almost do, holding your phone up when you're walking along, walking the dog or something.
Yeah.
So it will vary.
So, did you have to upskill yourself with the incoming of social media and all of the different platforms coming out? You've gone from essentially typing on a computer to having to navigate TikTok. I mean, that's insane. Broadband to TikTok. How did you upskill?
At the time I was on the Telegraph, it was a very interesting thing. We'd gone from Charles Moore, who was a very, very traditional newspaper editor, and by the time I left, Will Lewis was in charge of it, who bet the farm on the internet. And he was very much embracing all kinds of channels. So I actually, and this is like 2007, I was doing some podcasting, being interviewed for podcast then, and writing content for the web. But otherwise, yeah, it is entirely as a freelancer, it's entirely on you. As you don't have a company that's going to train you to do stuff. And one of the things that's definitely helped me is networking and maintaining links with journalists I knew. Once I started blogging, kind of met one blogger. He set up a Facebook group for other bloggers. So I got to know lots of people. I go to industry events, and it means that I have a network. So when I have queries, then I can kind of, fire them off to different people. I'm part of Facebook groups for both bloggers and journalists. And sometimes you learn a lot from the questions people are asking. I won't even know the answer. I won't even know what the hell the question means sometimes, but you can then go away, research it, learn about it. And it maybe they ask about things that you do know about so that you can kind of share your knowledge, help other people in turn after they've helped you.
Yeah, wonderful. How do you come up with the ideas for your articles and your blogs? Obviously, if corporate are requesting specific content from you, but how do you come up with your own ideas?
Well, even with corporate, quite often they will want ideas from you. I think to a certain extent, it's always at the back of my mind. And so part of staying up to date in a fast moving industry is, I will listen to the radio, I will listen to podcasts, I will look at the headlines, I will read other people's content, whether that's on social media or blogs or newspapers or websites. And so you're always thinking, okay, is that an angle? Is that something I can write about? Is that something I can take? Because you always thinking about the audience that you write about. So my most regular work is for a magazine called Yours, and I used to do quite a lot of content for Women in Home. Those are very different audiences. So, for example, when there was the issue with the mad Liz Truss budget and mortgage rates went through the roof, and a lot of people were worried about their mortgages. Some of my prime audiences, they won't have a mortgage anymore. They're sufficiently old, they will have cleared their housing debt, and so it was like, okay, what's the angle for them? Well, it's kind of they may well have children that are suffering this way that might be asking for help. What's the content that the audience would like to hear about how they can judge whether they can afford to support their own children on their housing journey? So it's kind of, and I do a certain amount of first person pieces. So it's kind of like, what am I doing? And could that be relevant? to anyone else. So when we got refused car insurance because our car insurer was just like, "No, we don't want to insure your hybrid car anymore." It was like, "Right, I bet I can get this place somewhere."
Yeah, wonderful. So you found your niche in the finance. Would you how did you fall into the finance aspect of it all? And would you ever try a different avenue, or are you like finance for life now?
It was where the opportunity arose, because that was the section of the Telegraph that I was temping for. But on the other hand, I had been temping for other bits of the Telegraph before that I think it was like the distribution department of the Spectator or something random. And somebody said, "Oh, there's a job that's come up in TV reviewing. Do you want to apply for that?" And I just thought, I'm not sure I would actually enjoy, because you wouldn't even be watching the TV programs that you were interested in. You'd be watching the TV programs that somebody else said they're new and you've got to write about them. And I just thought I'd be bored. But when something came up in personal finance, I thought, "Oh, actually, that to me, I would be interested in that." I thought it could be interesting. I thought it could develop. I thought to a certain extent it is a niche area that you could make a name for. You could make, once you built up the knowledge and you build up the contacts, I thought there would be opportunities going freelance later on. So I think it depends. Whatever you're interested in, there will be, there are, fashion journalists, sports journalists, current affairs journalists. There's all these different areas. So if trying to find something that you're interested and you're passionate about, and I enjoy writing about personal finance. It affects all areas of everybody's life, and it's useful. So I'm quite happy sticking with that. But I'm also aware there are other journalists that I know that have started off there, but moved into different areas because their interests lay elsewhere.
Yeah, completely. So what advice would you give for anyone trying to break into this industry?
Start writing. I mean, that's certainly something when I've gone back to university to talk to students about it. You know, as a journalist, that is your output. You need to show you can write. So who can publish your writing? Whether that's a school magazine, a university newspaper, a local paper, who is it that you can write for? I think it's amazing nowadays that, you could start up a personal blog, a Substack newsletter. You can just start writing, start thinking about it, start pitching about it. Because fundamentally, writing as a journalist, you've got to deliver interesting copy to time and to length, and it's got to be accurate. And you can start doing that. One of the things I'd say is you get any opportunity, do the best job you can do. So when I was making the tea, and I had been doing very, very different jobs before that. And it's like, okay, well, I've been asked to do this. I will do what I'm asked. I will do it the best I can. But then I've got free time. So I was actually kind of saying, okay, so, done tea, done diary, done filing, done reader letters. What can I do next? And that's how I got my first ever piece into the Telegraph, badgering my editor that I still had time. So he got me to do a little case study. When you ring somebody up, like, probably somebody had to make an insurance claim or something to go with an article about buildings and contents insurance. But it meant I got my first byline, 250 words of my first byline, got it in there. So I think there's an element of, you never know where opportunities are going to come from. And probably if I hadn't been badgering him and taking those opportunities, he wouldn't have thought of me when the job came up.
Oh, perfect. What's the best piece of financial advice that you've ever received?
Ah! Start investing.
Oh.
Yeah, start investing, because I didn't come from a back. My family did not invest in stocks and shares. I had a mother who was like, "Yeah, you've got to get on the property ladder, but get on the property ladder," and that is increasingly unaffordable right now. But with the growth of the internet and fintech companies, you can start investing. You do not have to be rich to start investing. You can invest for like 25 quid a month. And over the long term, it outperforms cash. And if you've got the opportunity to invest, I mean, a pension is a very long way ahead, but you do get given free money to kind of bribe you into doing it. So I say, especially as a woman, there is the known gender pay gap, gender pension gap. So sort away some of your money and don't just spend all of it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.